Welcome to the Three Sheeps Tap Room and Ignite Sheboygan. Our first presenter tonight is Luke Worth. He's the founder of MindShift Pro. He's a personal and professional development coach and a philanthropist. Please welcome Luke.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you, and I have a story I'm going to share tonight that really hits me in the heart, and I hope it hits you in the heart as well. You see, there's something special about you, something unique about you, something innately amazing about you. Kind of crazy, right? Yeah, there's something special about you, but you will never ever be able to see what that can turn into unless you discover your passion and your purpose. You see, it took me 30 years to discover what I was passionate about. 30 years and a speech at my grandpa's funeral. You see, it wasn't the speech at my grandpa's funeral that changed my life. It was the story that I shared. Reflecting back on all the stories my grandpa told me, there was one in particular that really changed my life. You see, back in 1943, my grandpa thought life was going to get a whole lot better. Well, it had to. I mean, he just went through the Great Depression, 17 years old, didn't finish high school yet. But then he received a letter in the mail that said, "Walter Hankey, you've been drafted into the United States Army to serve in an amphibious unit." The guy couldn't swim and he hated water. He spent the next year on a landing craft, a boat no bigger than the size of a bus, going from island to island on the Pacific up until the initial invasion on Japan. And you see, what he said to me is, he said, "Luke, when I was in my battleship and I was looking off into the mountainside of Wakayama, all I could see were the shimmering swords from the enemy that I thought would surely take my life. But just as the sun would set, the tide would lower that evening, dropping his boat down onto a reef. Why me? This sucks." I'm sure that's what he's thinking. But just as the sun would set, the sun would rise and the tide would rise as well, picking up his ship and sending it off to his final destination. And something amazing happened that day. You see, when he went to Wakayama, when he landed, the same hands that held the swords the day prior reached out and said, "Welcome, brother." See, when he was stuck on that reef, he thought it was a curse. But when he was stuck on that reef, the Japanese were bombed. Hiroshima was bombed, causing a verbal surrender. So it's very likely, if he wasn't stuck on that reef, he probably wouldn't have made it. Life had to get a lot better now, I would think. You see, my grandpa packed his bags. He was excited to go back home and see his mother. But then the doctor called him into their office and said, "Walter, I'm sorry to share with you, but you have tuberculosis." At that point in time, it was a life-threatening illness. You see, a month ago, I gave a speech on the same topic, and a gentleman came up to me afterwards and told me that his grandpa actually passed from tuberculosis. So it was a serious deal. My grandpa spent 4 years on his back in a death ward in New Mexico, staring at the ceiling while his friends and his comrades got taken out in body bags. You see, but my grandpa left. Why was he so fortunate? You see, he wasn't waiting to die, he was waiting to live. He built his future through the faculty of his imagination. He built pictures of what was to come. He built pictures of a barn that is now in Black River. He built pictures of a bait shop. It was so detailed and precise that he even had plans for the nets he was going to use to catch the bait that would be sold at the bait shop. And the most marvelous picture, I would say, was a picture of my grandma. He ended up marrying her, and sure enough, they lived inside the barn, and they had two sweet little daughters, one named Lori, and she's here right now. Isn't she beautiful? That's my mother. And went on to have 7 more children, and that's why I'm here tonight. But what I'm saying to you is, maybe you're stuck on a reef, maybe you don't know what's next in life, but what you have to understand is that you don't have to know what's coming. Sometimes just let the tide pick you up and take you. Because you can hunker down and you can look down and just realize that you're in a predictable spot. It's maybe not comfortable, but there is something better for you. You see, with every obstacle comes opportunity. And it's in the identification of the opportunity when it comes, and the willingness to act on that opportunity, that closes the door of circumstance and opens the door to freedom. And behind that door of freedom is a purpose, a picture of you living your dream. You see, maybe you're stuck in that reef and you're hunkered down. You don't want to get out of your comfort zone. No way. It's like those swords up in the mountainside. It's scary. But then you look down and you realize that all you were waiting for the whole time you were waiting for 2 years to go by and that the boat to collapse and the sharks to attack. There's an island for you. There's an island for you. What I'm going to say to you tonight is maybe you're stuck on a reef and you don't know the meaning of it. You don't really understand what the purpose of it is. But just know that sometimes you don't find your purpose. Sometimes your purpose finds you. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. It's my pleasure now to introduce Sue Charman Anderson. She is the founder of Ada Lovelace Day, which celebrates women in science and technology. Sue, welcome.
It is 1840. In the UK, Queen Victoria has married Prince Albert. In the US, William Harrison has become president, albeit briefly. And in Italy, inventor Charles Babbage is giving a lecture at the University of Turin. Back in England, Ada Lovelace is about to become the world's first computer programmer 100 years before the first computer is even built. Ada was born on the 10th of December, 1815. Part of the aristocracy and an only child, she was educated at home alone. She was taught maths and science, which she loved. She was particularly captivated by machines. She spent hours looking at diagrams and inventions and periodicals and decided she wanted to invent a flying steam-powered machine. So she studied how birds fly and investigated what materials might make good wings. Unfortunately, Ada was often ill. At 13, she was paralyzed by measles for a year. She also had headaches that obscured her vision. But she didn't let that stop her. One of her favorite teachers was mathematician and astronomer Mary Somerville. When Lovelace was 17, Somerville introduced her to the inventor Charles Babbage at one of his famous parties. Babbage was a mathematician, a mechanical engineer, and a vocal campaigner against street music. He also invented a mechanical calculating machine called the analytical engine. Babbage showed his machine to Lovelace, and she immediately grasped its importance. Babbage, in turn, was very impressed by Lovelace. He called her the enchanted maths fairy. Now, the analytical engine was designed to calculate complicated tables of numbers. This task was normally done by people who were prone to error. The analytical engine itself was run by punched cards, and it would never make a mistake. Now, if you remember Babbage's 1840 lecture in Turin, Italian engineer Luigi Menabrea was there, and he published a paper about the analytical engine in French. Lovelace translated it into English, and Babbage encouraged her to add her own notes because she understood the machine so well. Now, those notes tripled the length of the original paper, and in them, Lovelace outlined some early computer programs, including one that could calculate Bernoulli numbers. In this note, note G, Lovelace describes how to break the algebra down into simple mathematical equations and how you would then encode those into the punched cards that would control the analytical engine. Unfortunately for her, Babbage lost the first version of note G, and so Lovelace became the first computer programmer to wish that she'd taken a backup. Now, Lovelace realized that the analytical engine was a fundamentally different machine to other similar inventions. It wasn't just able to do calculations. It could actually work out the answers to problems without that answer having been worked out by humans beforehand. That was groundbreaking, and Lovelace understood the importance of this. It meant not just that the analytical engine could do calculations, it meant that it could potentially create art. It could maybe even create music. if it were possible for the science of harmony and musical composition to be broken down into a set of rules, the analytical engine could create a piece of music of any length or complexity. Lovelace's translation and notes were published in 1843 to great acclaim. But her work lay forgotten, and it's hard to know how she might have fulfilled her potential because she died less than 10 years later at the age of 36. It wasn't until 100 years had passed and Alan Turing started working on the first modern computers during the 1940s that her achievements were recognized. In the years since, she's become a figurehead for women in technology, not just because she wrote and published the first computer program, but because she was the first person to understand how creative and powerful computers could be. Thank you.
I love these presentations. Thank you, Sue. Next, we have Christopher Hahn, and he's going to tell us a story about how moving to Wisconsin has impacted him and his family. Chris?
Thank you, Charlie. So yes, I'm Chris Hahn. So I'm a New Yorker. I'm a Jets fan. I'm a Mets fan. I hate the Giants, and I hate the Yankees. I moved here and I said, there's no way I'm going to become a Packers fan, and I'm wrong. It's happening, and I didn't expect it to. I mean, I went to Lambeau for a game this year. Lambeau is incredible. Rodgers is gorgeous. But it was the Packer fight song that really drew me in, and I don't know if everyone's familiar with it, but it's enchanting. It's very alluring, and it's this beautiful gateway to like the Wisconsin culture. My wife and I moved here from New York, but before that we were in West Virginia. And a lot like bluegrass is this gateway to West Virginian culture. You may not realize it, but the Packer fight song is this gateway to Wisconsin culture. Well timed, right? But it really is. It's like this siren song for like easy times and good friends. And while I used to look at these people and equate them with Yankee fans, you know, just condescending people who couldn't say a nice thing about the Vikings. I mean, the Vikings, give them a break. But they're not. They're just confident, not condescending. Things are good. Things are fine. And it's all a part of that song that I've started to learn the way they think and why I want to be a part of this culture. So for those who don't know the Packer fight song, it's got this like drum beat and then this low horn. Here it goes. Boom, boom, ba-no-no-no. Go, Pack, go. Boom, boom, ba-no-no-no. Go, Pack, go. Yeah. All right. So for those of you who know the Packer fight song, you're like, what the is he doing? Butchered it. For those of you who don't, it sounds a lot like that. And I love it. I absolutely love it. But I think to give you context to why that's had such an impression on me, I should give you my fight songs that I grew up with in New York. So let's start with the Jets. Here's the fight song. J-E-T-S, Jets, Jets, Jets. It's hard. It's painful. It is not fun. It's angry. It's filled with anxiety. All that we're saying is, please don't lose today. Please don't lose. You're laughing because it's true. And then there's my beloved Mets, who I will never turn my back on them. But our fight song is this. Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Come on down and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life. It's not a fight song. It's a marketing jingle. So the culture I grew up in is one of anxiety and ticket sales, zero confidence, zero kind of appreciation for who we are. We try to make light of our life because it's sad. But the Packer culture, bum, bum, ba-da-na-na, yeah. Bump, bump, ba-da-na-na. 9 NFC championships before the Super Bowl. Bump, bump, ba-da-na-na. The first 2 Super Bowls. Bump, bump, ba-da-na-na. Oh, you know the trophy? That's named after us. Bump, bump, ba-da-na-na. Favre, now Rodgers. Bump, bump, ba-da-na-na. Got my tickets to Houston for this year. Bump, bump, ba-da-na-na. Every generation, bump, bump, ba-da-na-na, is a champion. And that's what's so impressive. And I'm not here to become a Packer fan to co-op wins, or else I could have become a Yankee fan a long time ago and made my life a lot easier in New York. But it's that culture of genuinely living good moments, that culture of work ethic, and that culture of confidence and community, that if I can pull that into my family, and if I can put that into the blood of my boys because of having moved here, that great culture of community, well then, moving here to Wisconsin would have been worth it. And my boys, you know, I don't mind if they make us Packer fans, because I'll know that they have something better behind it. And I know you're thinking, that's a lot to get out of a song. No, that's a song with 2 words. But it's true. And if you don't see that cultural anthem, I hope you do as of today. So, go Pack, go. Oh, and since I have time, Yankees suck.
So our next presentation is by Nanette Boulabash, and she's going to talk about the great things that happen when you take a big risk. Nanette?
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie. Okay, let me get this set up here. Don't start it, James. Yet, not yet. All right. I can sort of see you. I didn't quite have this memory. Can you all hear me? All right. Okay, we're ready, James. So I ran for state assembly, and I didn't win the election. But I won so much else. So I am on a mission to convince people to consider that big risk you've been frightened of, and especially consider running for office. We need young people, people of all ages. We especially need women, and I will tell you more about that near the end of my presentation. I came out at the end of this 6-month campaign much, much stronger, more confident, a better speaker. I can go up to strangers and talk. I'm a better listener. Rejection, no big deal. You don't like me? 11,250 people did. And it was so great. Really, nothing else is ever going to match that. And I'm definitely running again. And it's kind of crazy. And the average women, you have to be asked to run 7 times. And I was no different. I was petrified. I had chest pains for 2 weeks when I knew I was going to finally say yes. So I'm trying to convince you, don't let that stop you. I used to work for a newspaper, so back when I worked 23 years ago, we gave candidates a lot more attention. Nobody gave my candidacy any attention, so I didn't have anything to fear. It was all up to me. We made our own attention. We did it. So I did get some political training, Emerge Wisconsin, training women for political leadership. It helped that I had some theater experience. I know diction, posture, but believe me, I'm not playing a character. I had to play myself and write my own words. So, but you can do it. A couple times I bombed. I want to tell you, I had a couple of speeches where I was ready to quit because I thought, I can't do this. And years ago I would have quit, but I couldn't. My name was on the ballot. I had to keep going. So I got some expert advice from Mr. Charlie Krebs, who spent an hour with me, more than that, really, and just convincing me that it wasn't about me, that I had to think out there. So the next speech I gave to the Manitowoc County Lakes Association, I rocked. I was hot. And that was thanks to him. It's not about you. It's about the people you can help. It's also about the team you can collect. And people came up to me offering to help. This was my very first parade, Elkhart Lake. I was in 6 parades. I knocked on 800 doors. You do not knock on 800 doors and not be changed. I was changed. And we had fun. Look at this. They painted my car, and we used that for 6 parades, and we loved it. And then I drove the same car for another couple of months because it was free advertising. They helped me raise money. I didn't reach my goal of $25,000, but I raised twice as much as I thought I would. More than almost 200 donors, people with $5 bills wrinkled up, sending me in envelopes. My heart was warmed. They had paid for the yard signs. Every time I drove and saw one of my yard signs, my heart was warmed. This was a humbling experience. People just, every time I saw that, I did not get a big head, even though this one was 4 feet tall, because I realized it was about how you could make a difference. As soon as you focus on other people and listen to their stories, that's what makes you a better person. It makes you stronger. I'm a better listener than even when I was very shy, because now I make a conscious effort to do that. You have to make sure you think outside of the box. We really played up the suffrage theme. My friend Christia made all these costumes. So we talked about the women's vote. We were in 6 parades. I knocked on all those doors. I lost 25 pounds. I have never been in better shape. So I really want to tell you, I also met some great people, young people, people of all ages, candidates. The Sheboygan County Democratic Party was a well-oiled machine. Turns out we weren't the right machine, but we rocked, and we are so ready for the next election. I also met young people. I spoke to Girl Scouts. Oh, I collected, this was at the Sheboygan County Fair. A guy argued with me about Trump. He ran off with my cream puff. I don't get it, but it's a great story I'm going to have the rest of my life. And I met these Girl Scouts. I always realized that I was a role model. And I want to tell you, gals, we need to run for local office. If you look at the 28 municipalities, 29 if you include Sheboygan County, we are outnumbered 9-1. Only one of the 29 municipalities in Sheboygan County is led by a woman. Go, Town of Linden, yay! All the rest, it's all men. And some of these towns, villages, cities don't even have a single elected woman. This is 2016. We can do better. So now is the time to run for local office. You could still get enough signatures. I think it's due January 3rd. There are a couple people here who are running for local office. Ryan, Kyle, find them, talk to them, volunteer for their campaign. Really, it's never been more important to stay involved. Listen, I lost my race, but I found my voice, and you can too. And my team members, some of them are here. Please stand up. You guys rocked. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Ignite Sheboygan. This is so great. Thanks.
Thank you, Nanette. That was fantastic. Our next presenter is Scott Schmidt. Scott is going to tell us how a saint and a burly man in high heels can teach us to overcome the diversophobia complex. Scott?
Well, I'm honored to be here with you guys tonight, and I appreciate everybody and all these speakers. Let's give a big round of applause to everybody who's already been out here. Takes a lot of guts. Good job. So I want to jump right into my time with you, and I'd like to do that by sharing with you the definition of a word. And that word is right behind me. It is diversophobia. It's kind of scary sounding, isn't it? At least Johnny thinks so. Diversophobia is this. It's a state of mind which causes one to devalue differences. In the worst cases, it causes the acceptance and promotion of stereotypes, up to and including evoking a visceral reaction to a perceived threat at some level. Now, most recently, this has very applicably been attached to the current state of social affairs in our country, and I think in the year 2016, we've all had examples that we can point to that show us that this is true. Talk about a visceral reaction. When I was a kid, I devalued broccoli. And believe me, when my mother came around with that broccoli pot, it evoked an incredibly visceral reaction. My point being this, we attach diversophobia to people. But it's not just about race or gender or ethnicity, because diversity is about life. Take a look at the world around us. Everything that we do is diverse. Everything we see is diverse. So at this point, I'm sure you're asking, what does a saint and a burly man in high-heeled shoes have to do with this? It's a very good question. Let's get into it. In my professional life, I am a recruiter in the construction industry. It makes sense if you look at me, right? However, on the personal side of things, I tend to enjoy, I put this frame in purposely because when you put man in high heels in the title and you get to this point in the speech, I just wanted y'all to see what your faces look like right now, all right? There's no other way to say this. I'm going to jump right into it. In my personal life, I tend to enjoy acting. I'm an amateur actor. I don't get paid for it, but along the way I've had some pretty cool roles, and one of those roles was in a cult classic rock musical called The Rocky Horror Show. Now, anybody who's familiar, right? Anybody who's familiar with this knows it's a little bit off the beaten path. The role I was able to play was Dr. Frankenfurter, who is an alien from the planet transsexual. He's a transvestite. He likes men as much as he likes women. Oh, and he walks around in women's lingerie and fishnet stockings and high-heeled shoes. Now, this is how I choose a role. One, will it challenge me? Two, what will I learn from it? I had no idea what I'd learn from it, to be straightforward, but I did know I had to learn this. It's not as easy as it looks. Guys, stand up with me real quick. Come on. Everybody stand up real quick. All right, I want you to do this simultaneously. Straighten your back, push out your butt, loosen your arms, loosen your neck. Now move. Right? That's what we end up looking like when we try to do this, because our body does not want to do it, right? There's absolutely nothing in my body that wanted to do this. Now, I had 5 weeks to do this. 3 weeks in, I'm struggling, and I get this nagging fear in the back of my head. What if I learn this walk and I can't get my old walk back? This is where the saint comes in. St. Francis of Assisi said in a prayer, "Grant that I may not so much seek to be understood as to understand." See, my body in the course of this interaction was seeking to be understood. Subconsciously, it was telling me, we don't walk like this, and we're not going to walk like this. Once I realized what that fear was, a little light bulb went on in my head. We usually attach seeking to understand to other people, but what about ourselves? When it comes to fear, which is what diversophobia is, the best place to start is with understanding who you are and what your fears are about. And that will help you understand others. And, you know, maybe you too could do this someday. In reality, though, it's really at the heart of things. Our entire world is diverse. From flowers to trees to the rooms in our house, they're all diverse. So how do we get over a phobia? Everybody will tell you it's exposure, exposure, exposure. But what about exposure to ourselves? Because if you don't understand who you are first, right, you can't understand who others are. So my challenge to you today is to accept that fact. Accept that the world is a diverse thing. Just like I had to accept that my mother was going to serve broccoli at least one time a week, right? It was just a fact. I didn't get hurt from it. So as human beings, once we accept this fact and we understand it, we have a responsibility. Listen to yourself and those around you, understand yourself and those around you, and then act on what you've learned and what you've grown into. Now, I put this slide up not to show you what the world should look like. I put this slide up to show you what the world does look like. This is our world, folks. It's already diverse. That's right. The broccoli's already there. And when you accept that fact, you understand it's not so scary after all. So what I want to do right now is I want to thank you folks in advance for the world we're going to create as we seek first to understand ourselves, and then we seek even more so to understand those around us. And like I said, you'd be amazed at what you can achieve. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Scott. Pause. How long does it take to go by? 30 seconds. Our last presenter this evening is Travis Gross, and he's going to tell us a story about what happens when non-fishers go on a fishing trip. Travis, welcome.
Hello. Ready? Hey everybody. So I'm going to share a story about experiencing adventure. And the best way to experience adventure, obviously, is by traveling. And a better way to do that is by traveling with people who know you best. So a longtime friend of mine, we call Clover, has been pestering me for 20 years to visit Newfoundland. So specifically, the village that his mom grew up in. Now, in order to get to St. Brendan's, the village, it involves a 90-minute ferry ride. So, as you can obviously guess, this story is going to involve boats. And the first boat we were on was the ferry that took us over to St. Brendan's. Here's this big boat, it holds 12 cars, it has a crew of 6, it has lifeboats, no need to wear life preservers. We were able to relax on the deck and watch the wildlife and the passing shoreline communities. So when we get to St. Brendan's, we realize that this is a dying community. There's about 150 people living there, most of those retirees. 30 years ago, they had a population of 500. It has a church with a traveling priest, 2 stores, a K through 12 school with 11 students, and a community center. And what happens in St. Brendan's when someone passes away, their houses and their shanties are just locked up and left to the forces of Mother Nature. So all across this village, there are abandoned homes. There are half-fallen down homes. There are piles of rubble that used to be homes. Complete family plots totally vacant. Those that remain, they make the best of it. They need to be there. It's in their blood. So some of them do actually work. Those that do work have about a 2-hour travel time, including the ferry, to get to their job. Others work on the island, either at the school or in the power plant or as commercial fishermen. The few remaining commercial fishermen left will take anything and everything. They go for crabs, they trap for lobsters, they especially fish cod, or codfish to them. Codfish is their lifeline, and codfish jigging is what we're going to experience. So, like every good fishing story, it must include beer. We stop at Clover's Second Cousins Market. We buy some good Canadian beer. We buy some good Canadian candy, because beer and candy. And we are ready to start our adventure. So when we were talking to Clover about getting this trip set up, we said, well, maybe we'd like to do some whale watching and possibly fishing if we're possible. He's like, dude, don't worry about it. I got you set up. My buddy Ralph up on the island's a commercial fisherman. He'll take us out on his boat out into the ocean. We're all good. So we're thinking, all right, our second boat, a big fishing trolley, boat that goes out into the ocean. Maybe we have to wear our life preservers, but we're going to be safe. Well, Clover forgot one minor detail. He was supposed to bring some fuel from the mainland, and he didn't. So Ralph offered to take us on his smaller boat, and my brother-in-law Todd and I took him up on that. So we went out into the cove, and we helped Ralph lift some lobster traps. After a while, we went over to Clover's Uncle Kevin's place. And Uncle Kevin's like, I'll take you out to the ocean. So we get to his boat. And here's this 24-foot fiberglass-bodied boat, something you'd see towing, water skiers on Elkhart Lake or hanging off of North Beach on a hot summer day. But we all wanted to experience the North Atlantic. So with some apprehension, we put on our life jackets, we boarded the SS Minnow, and we shot 25 minutes straight out to the North Atlantic. Once we got out there, Kevin killed the engines and we started floating. It was at this point that Todd and I got our crash course on the intricacies of codfish jigging. So what you do is you have this line that has 3 or 4 lures on it and a bunch of weight at the end. You drop it in the water until it hits the bottom. When it hits the bottom, you take a quick jerk up and then you start jigging the line. When you feel a tug, you start pulling it in. So Todd's the first one to drop the line, and he's jigging. He feels a tug, and so he starts pulling it in. We're in about 150 to 200 feet of water, so it's going to take a little bit. So he's pulling, and we see 1 fish. And he continues pulling, and we see 2 fish. And he continues pulling, and there's 3 fish on the line. We're freaking out. Every lure on the line had a fish on it, and it's like the first time jigging in the North Atlantic, and he goes for the trifecta, right? Uncle Kevin, the lifelong newfie, he's sitting there going, well, I've only seen that a couple of times in my life. So, I have to follow it up. So I drop my line, and I jig, and I feel a tug, so I start pulling it up, and I will say I did catch 2. I was only able to get 1 on the boat. But I felt pretty good about that because Uncle Kevin, the newfie, he only caught one, so I'm in good company, you know. At that point, Kevin, says, we got to get back to shore. So he takes this tangled mess of line, throws it in my lap, and we start hightailing it back to shore. About 5 minutes into the trip back, the skies open up. It starts pouring. Heavy rain, thunder, lightning. We're in this little boat heading back from the North Atlantic. I'm trying to untangle this line. We finally get back to the pier, and there Kevin, in 30 seconds, untangles the line. We proceed to clean the fish in a thunderstorm right on the public pier in St. Brendan's. But later on that evening, we were able to sit down around a table and enjoy this really delicious meal with some really cool people after experiencing this totally awesome adventure. Thank you.
Travis, thank you very much. Thank you all for coming here tonight. This is our second Ignite. We love seeing all these people here. Thank you. Our next Ignite is going to be in February. Do we have a date? February 13th is the date. So make plans to be here. We'll post it on Facebook and other social media outlets. Let me remind you, at the end of the bar over here, there's a little donation jar, but also a place if you'd like to sign up. You're not committing to anything, but we'll contact you. We have a whole process that we can help you with. As you can tell, none of these have a formula to them. You can talk about anything you want. So, on behalf of all of us that are part of Ignite, thank you for being here. Thank you, Three Sheeps. Three Sheeps is open until 10. You can practice your speeches with James. So, thank you for hosting us. Everyone, have a happy holiday and a Merry Christmas. Thank you.